All right, today's study is going to be on Rebekah. We can find Rebekah in Genesis 24, and this is where Abraham sends his servant to find Isaac a wife. So she's a young Rebekah. We can also find Rebekah in Genesis 25, 19 through 34, where we see Rebekah become a mother. Then we see her in Genesis 27, 5 through 46, where she's an older Rebekah, and it's a little bit hard to understand where Rebekah's coming from in those scriptures, but we're going to talk about it. So we're going to start in Genesis 24. Abram was now very old, and the Lord had blessed him in every way. He said to the senior servant in his household, the one in charge of all that he had, "Put your hand under my thigh. I want you to swear by the Lord, the God of heaven and the God of earth, that you will not get a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites, among whom I am living, but will go to my country and my own relatives and get a wife for my son Isaac." The servant asked him, "What if the woman is unwilling to come back with me to this land? Shall I take your son back to the country you came from?" "Make sure that you do not take my son back there," Abraham said. "The Lord, the God of heaven, who brought me out of my father's household and my native land, and who spoke to me and promised me an oath, saying, 'To your offspring I will give this land.' He will send his angels before you so that you can get a wife for my son from there. If the woman is unwilling to come back with you, then you will be released from this oath of mine. Only do not take my son back there." So the servant put his hand under the thigh of his master Abraham and swore an oath to him concerning this matter. Then the servant left, taking with him 10 of his master's camels with all kinds of good things from his master, and set out for Aram Naharaim. I'm going to missay a lot of words. I'm just going to let you know now. And made his way to the town of Nahor. So what does verse 1 through 10 tell us of Rebekah? Well, nothing much, not yet, but more about why they traveled so far for a wife. Abraham knew God's covenant about making Isaac a great nation, and he was concerned about finding Isaac's wife. This wife must not be a Canaanite, but someone from his own relatives. Now take note here that his servant took 10 fully loaded camels. They had a burden upon their backs, 10 of them, because that's coming back into play in just a few minutes. Verse 11. He had the camels kneel down near, you see how it jumps? Boy, he's already there. He had the camels kneel down near the well outside the town. It was towards evening, the time the women go out to draw water. Then he prayed, "Lord, God of my master Abraham, make me successful today and show kindness to my master Abraham. See, I am standing beside the spring, and the daughters of the town people are coming out to draw water. May it be that when I say to a young woman, 'Please let down your jar that I may have a drink,' and she says, 'Drink, and I will water your camels too.' Let her be the one you have chosen for your servant Isaac. By this I will know that you have shown kindness to my master." Before he had finished praying, Rebekah came out with her jar on her shoulder. She was the daughter of Bethuel, son of Micaiah, who was the wife of Abraham's brother Nahor. The woman was very beautiful, a virgin. No man had ever slept with her. She went down to the spring, filled her jar, and came up again. The servant hurried to meet her and said, "Please give me a little water from your jar." "Drink, my lord," she said, and quickly lowered the jar to her hands and gave him a drink. After she had given him a drink, she said, "I'll draw water for your camels too, until they have had enough to drink." So she quickly emptied her jar into the trough, ran back to the well, and drew more water, and drew enough for his camels. Well, that was verse 11 through 20. So, what do we see about Rebekah? Well, she's a go-getter. She's strong, and she had endurance. Because, remember those 10 heavily burdened camels I just spoke about? I thought, how much water does a camel drink? So what did I do? I got on the web and I looked it up. A dang camel can drink up to 35 gallons of water. 35 gallons of water. in 13 minutes. And that doesn't mean that they're satisfied their thirst. That just means that's how much they can drink. Their thirst depends on how far they've traveled, how hot it is, and how much weight they are carrying. I also looked up ancient water clay jugs, and they can hold on a range of 2 to 3 gallons. Let me see. And the well, I'm sorry, I got mixed up here. And the well described here is not like the ones that we see in the American colonial days where there's a rope and you pull up the bucket. The scripture says she walked down to the spring. So Rebekah would walk down a few stairs, bend over, fill her jar, lift that heavy jar into her shoulders, walk back up the stairs, and dump the water. Let's say 35 gallons satisfy each camel. She would have to carry what? 350 gallons. That would be 117 trips, and 3 gallons of water weighs 24.99 pounds. That's 25 pounds that she would put on her shoulder. So I brought today one of my husband's weights. It's 25 pounds. I can't do it on my shoulder. There's no way. And then she bent down. Okay, Sarah, you're younger. You try it. Make a young one try it. See what a young one can do. Bend down and get your water. Get down your water. There you go. Pick it up. Put it on your shoulder. All right. Now do 117 trips to the back and front. Oh, Lord. So in verse 9, she said, I'll draw water for your camels too. And then she didn't just stop there and say, I'm going to draw a little water for your camels. They'll get a little drinky drink. No, she said, until they have had enough to drink. So she went above and beyond what she could have done. She could have just been like, yep, gave them some water. They'll get some more later tonight, but I'm done. Nope, she filled them. She gave them until they finished drinking and were satisfied. She did more than what she expected. Way over, to my opinion. She went way over, because I don't think I could have made but 2 trips on a good day up them steps and watered those camels. And I'm sure she had done it for a very long time, and she probably had a lot more strength than what I did at that age, for sure. She was a strong woman. So I'm going to summarize 21 through 53, because it's pretty much just the same story. The servant goes and tells the same story he just told. So the servant watched her to see if the Lord had made his journey successful. He gave her a gold nose ring and 2 gold bracelets. He didn't cheap out on Rebekah, did he? He was like, here, you deserve this. He asked the Lord who she was, or he asked who she was, and if he could stay the night. She said yes, and the man bowed down and worshiped the Lord right there. He tells the family why he came and what he saw of Rebekah, and that's where the repeat was. He just kind of repeats it over again. So verse 54, then he and the men who were with him ate and drank and spent the night there. When they got up the next morning, he said, send me on my way. Already, he's ready to go. But her brother and her mother replied, let the young woman remain with us 10 days or so, then you may go. But he said to them, do not detain me. Now that the Lord has granted success to my journey, send me on my way so I may go to my master. Then he said, let's call the young woman. Then they said, let's call the young woman and ask her about it. So they called Rebekah and asked her, will you go with this man? And Abram's servant, this man, she said, will you go with this man? I will go, she said. So they sent their sister Rebekah on her way, along with her nurse and Abram's servants and his men. And they blessed Rebekah and said to her, our sister, may you increase to thousands of thousands. May your offspring possess the cities of their enemies. Then Rebekah and her attendants got ready, mounted the camels, and went back with the man. So the servant took Rebekah and left. So verse 54 through 61, what does it tell us of Rebekah? It tells us she was courageous. When she was asked to pack her belongings and travel a great distance and begin a new life with this man named Isaac, she was ready to go. She was ready to go. She had spiritual fortitude. She walked with a great measure of faith in God and faith and trust in God. Even when she didn't know what the future held, she didn't hesitate. She said, I will go. I will go. 62. Now Isaac came from Beer Lahai Ro, I do not know how to say it, for he was living in this city. And he went out to the field one evening to meditate. And as he looked up, he saw camels approaching. Rebekah also looked up and saw Isaac. She got down from her camel and asked the servant, Who is that man in the field coming to meet me? He is my master, the servant answered. So she took her veil and covered herself. Then the servant took Isaac. Then the servant told Isaac all he had done. Isaac brought her into the tent of his mother Sarah, and he married Rebekah. So she became his wife, and he loved her, and Isaac was comforted after his mother's death. That's kind of sweet. That is a sweet verse right there. But what does it tell us about Rebekah? Well, here she is, a woman of action. And she sees Isaac. She gets off that camel. She probably jumped a little bit, like, yeehaw, off that camel. But what the Bible really states is that she veiled herself. This is a nonverbal act, perhaps signaling her status as the soon-to-be betrothed woman. That she dons the veil herself may also indicate a little bit of independence. So, brides were usually taken to the bridegroom enveloped in a veil, so that by wrapping herself in this veil, Rebekah notified that she was the bride. So when she wrapped herself and Isaac was walking up, she had her attendant. She had other people there. And by wrapping herself, she stood out and said, Yep, I'm the bride. I'm right here. This is me. And Lord, he didn't know he was getting such a beautiful woman, did he? She was all wrapped up. So we go to Genesis 25. Because now they're married. She brought him great comfort. I think that's sweet. Over the loss of his mama. She must have been a lot like Sarah if it brought her so much comfort. That's just my thought right there. Don't write that down. That's just my thought. Okay, so this is the account of the family line of Abraham's son, Isaac. Abraham became the father of Isaac, and Isaac was 40 years old when he married Rebekah, daughter of, and it goes on and on and on. Isaac prayed to the Lord on behalf of his wife because she was childless. The Lord answered the prayer, and his wife, Rebekah, became pregnant. The babies jostled each other within her, and she said, Why is this happening to me? So she went to inquire of the Lord. And I love this part. The Lord answered, and the Lord said to her, 2 nations are in your womb, and 2 people from within you will be separated. One people will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger. That's probably a little bit confusing at the time, but God spoke to her. When the time came to give birth, there were twin boys in her womb. The first to come out was red, and his whole body was like a hairy garment. So they named him, I'm going to say it wrong, I've practiced all day, Esau. After that, his brother came out with his hand grasping Esau's heel. So he was named Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when Rebekah gave birth to them. The boys grew up, and Esau became a skillful hunter, a man of the open country, while Jacob was content to stay at home among the tents. Isaac had a taste for wild game, and loved Esau. But Rebekah loved Jacob. So each kind of had a special child in these twins. So what does this say about Rebekah here? Rebekah was 20 years into a childless marriage. And you know, in the time, you didn't want to be childless. You could have been shunned for being childless. You know, it was a great honor to bear children. So they 20 years, she went like just like Sarah. That 20 years into this childless marriage. The passage leaves us with some unanswered questions. Why did she love Jacob more? Have y'all read that and wondered that? I read it all the time, and I'm like, why would she love Jacob more? And if she did, why would it be written down? Because if I love one of my children more, I wouldn't write it down anywhere so they'd find it when I was dead, right? Because you'd use it against me. Rest of them, maybe. So I did a little research on it, and there's a lot out there that talks about this very thing. So I would encourage everybody that's interested to do their own research. But I will mention one thing that I found that I thought was kind of interesting. In a midrashic retelling, it says that God gave Rebekah a prophecy, and that partially towards Jacob was God's choice, and when they were still in the womb, and Rebekah merely implemented a divine plan. So if you read some of the Jewish web pages, that's where I was reading and got that's what they were saying, that the matriarchs were prophetess and spoke to God often. And so Rebekah was very much aware of what was going on. I'm confused when it reads about how they were running around in her belly. She kind of knew. So, but that's not in the Bible. That's in another reading. So I encourage you to do your own research on that. But it makes me understand a little bit about why maybe she loved Jacob. You know what I need to look up? I need to look up the word loved they use in that passage. What exactly that word means. So anyway, I failed on that. I'm sorry. Okay, so I'm going to summarize because this is getting long. Genesis 27 for us. Isaac had grown. Did they turn the AC on here for us? Are y'all as hot as I am? Whew, Lordy. Okay, so Isaac had grown old and could no longer see. So he called Esau and he told him, my days are numbered. Go hunt game and prepare it so I can come and give you a blessing before I die. Rebekah was listening and went to her son and told him, Isaac was preparing to give his blessing to Esau, that I have a plan. Bring me 2 young goats so I can prepare it for Isaac, and you can take it into your father so he may give you his blessing. Jacob wasn't so sure about this plan. He said, if Dad touched me, it would look like I was tricking him, and he would bring down a curse on me instead of a blessing. Rebekah was not deterred. She said, let the curse fall on me. Just do what I say. So she fixed Isaac his favorite food and dressed Jacob in Esau's clothing and covered Jacob's arm and neck with goatskin. She sent Jacob in with food and bread. Now Isaac wasn't certain about this because he was expecting Esau, but there was someone that sounded like Jacob but smelt and felt like Esau. So he gave his blessing and Jacob left. Well, no longer sooner had Jacob left than in come Esau. And he's like, whoa, who are you? Isaac's a little confused. And he said, I'm Esau, I'm your firstborn. Oops. Now it is all come to pass. Now they know. They know that they've been tricked again because Jacob has done this before. And Isaac gets really upset. Esau falls into a rage, says, pretty much after Dad's gone, I'm killing my brother. Rebekah was told about this. And he told what Esau said and told Jacob, go to my brother, where she had come from. Travel over there until your brother's fury has subsided. So now let's pick it back up in verse 46. Then Rebekah said to Isaac, I'm disgusted with living because of these Hittite women. If Jacob takes a wife from among the women of this land, from Hittite women like these, my life will not be worth living. I read 46 all the time, and to me it seems like, what's going on, Rebekah? I don't get it. It just seems like it jumps from her plan and her plot to all of a sudden she's complaining about what Jacob's going to do. So I looked into it to find out a little bit more about it. So what she's doing is she's trying to get Jacob off to her brother for safety. But she's a woman and she can't just do it. She has to get Jacob's Isaac's approval to get him over there. And so what she does is she says, I don't want, just like Abraham sent someone to get her from another land, she wants to send Jacob away to get a wife. And it works, because if we read a little further down, Isaac sends him away to get his wife. So you might first think that Rebekah is a little manipulative and out to get the best for her son that she loves the most. But I have a hard time thinking that, because if you look at the descendants of Esau, they become the Edomites, named from the nickname of liking red stew. And the Edomites came to worship pagan gods and did not get along with the Israelites, while Jacob is the patriarch of the Israelites. So they went into totally separate ways. Got me interested that maybe she's not being manipulative for her, but maybe she is following a divine plan. Maybe she is listening to God and he's speaking. I think that she was the same as a young woman as she was as an old woman. That she was brave, she was strong, she was independent, she had communication with God, because she asked and he answered. And she was a woman of action from the very beginning to the very end. She moved when she knew that God needed her to move. So Rebekah is a very interesting lady to study, and actually piqued my interest to try to study a little bit more about her. So, anybody got any questions? Anybody want a nice cold drink? I'm sorry, it's so hot. They're back there fanning themselves. I'm so sorry. So, any questions, any comments? There is a group of 20 women sitting here. Someone's got a comment. Don't hide. Just say it. Yes, ma'am.
Rebekah is the first woman that the Bible notes that got to speak to God. Sarah never spoke to God or got an answer that the Bible records. So Rebekah is the first woman that the Bible records that spoke and God responded to.
Oh, Rebekah. She's pretty special. And tell me if I'm wrong, but isn't she also like the first union that came together with man and wife that actually spoke of love?
It is, and it was also the first one that was monogamous, because the one before her was not, and the two after her were not.
Rebekah. That's why I just can't go thinking, and I did for years. I thought, man, Rebekah, she manipulated the situation. That was my thought for years, but the more I read about it, I'm like, I think she was listening to God more. I think she was a godly woman. So, anyway, yes, ma'am?
You were talking a while ago about the twins being there. Most of us in here have had one child in our stomach, but I can't even imagine, I know the misery of one when they start moving around before it's time to give birth. I can't imagine two of them in there. I mean, I've never had twins before. I've had twin grandsons and everything, but I can't even imagine.
No, me neither.
The movement that goes on in the battle in your stomach.
Especially if they were fighting.
Yeah.
It must be hard.
Yeah, space is limited in there. When you throw two of them in there,
Oh,
there's just no, yeah. So, well, if anybody has any comments or questions, yes, ma'am?
One thing that stood out to me was God was watching all this. God saw, he'd already been speaking like he said to Rebekah before the children were born. And it was like a very, very, how shall we say, what is the term we use? Dysfunctional family, okay? Because the mother loved one and the father loved the other. And they clashed, because they were different and not alike. And yet, through all of this, God was there. He was speaking to Rebekah. He was probably speaking to Isaac, and had everything, his divine plan prevailed, despite how they went about it or what they did. And that's what I got out of it. God's divine plan was fulfilled through Isaac and what he wanted to do, even though they were sort of dysfunctional. I would hate to be in a situation where I love one kid and don't love the other. That just would not be happy for me.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that always stood out with me is how could you say you loved one? I was always like,
Don't you think that because Jacob stayed near the tent, he stayed near his
mama.
and Esau was out doing things that surely Dad was out doing the sort of help. And I don't think you love one So,
To our knowledge, she never saw her favorite son again. She died.
she died before he ever came back.
It was a good sacrifice on her part, put it that way.
And speaking of that, I think it's interesting that Esau got all the material things, and Jacob got all the spiritual things.
Yeah, because Jacob goes right to a dream.
Esau was the one running it. Esau got all the profit. Esau got everything.
Everything was left. Jacob left by himself. But he also had to take care of mom. Can you imagine having to live with that son? Seriously, and having him take care of you?
Yeah.
And God took care of Jacob too, because he come back just as wealthy or wealthier than Esau. And,
Yeah, and what you said about that is, it says that Esau was like, my father's days are limited. After he's gone, I'm gonna kill my brother. He didn't care about how mom felt about it. Or at least that's what it didn't say that after mom and dad are gone, I'm killing my brother.
In the Jewish culture, it wouldn't matter.
Yeah,
It was only about that.
Yeah. So.
And also the fact that he didn't really care, well, that's what the Greek does. He despised his birthright. He sold it to Jacob. Jacob already had purchased it to that bulbous suit that, made to Esau. So, that's also a break there between him and God.
Well, and where did he get his wives from?
From the
Who, Esau or
Ishmael.
Ishmael?
Uh-huh.
He got it
So-
from local women who were idol worshipers.
That
not
were
Christian.
separated from Abraham when Abraham separated his boys, right?
Mhm.
And created different lines, right?
Mhm.
And Abraham said, don't go that direction. And Esau chose to walk back as opposed to staying with what Abraham had said that God had told him. So I think that as much as we want to look at Rebekah, I think sometimes we forget some of the other family dynamics that what you're talking about. And that was my take on it, is that we miss Esau, I think, a lot in this story if you just read it.
One thing that struck me
Miss
about
his choices to walk away from God and the religion that God was beginning to establish with his people.
And right after all this story, it talks about how Esau knew that taking a wife from those women would make his father and his mother upset. And he went purposely and took wives. So that tells you a little bit about Esau's mindset. Or
That disconnect was there
yeah.
already.
So, no, it's interesting when we start talking and
Sorry, I have one comment that kind of makes me giggle. When they put the goat fur on Jacob and they said he felt, but also smelled like Esau. That's got to be unfortunate to smell like a goat.
He put his clothes, Esau's clothes on him.
Oh, okay.
So he smelled like Esau because he smelled like his working God. Yeah.
Oh, I thought he smelled like
Oh, gosh. Anybody want to close us out with prayer? In prayer? Not with prayer? Anybody? Nobody? Oh, don't all jump. Go.
Blessed Lord, we just thank you for your many blessings. We thank you for this lady that you carried us through this story, and we thank you for Rebekah, for the example, Lord, that we can all be strong women and fulfill your plans, Lord Jesus. And we just pray, God, that you would go with us throughout this week. Help us to remember all that Rebekah did, Lord. And we pray, God, that you would bless our fellowship. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Mary Magdalene is next month. I will warn you, Mary Magdalene makes me cry every time I read about it. When she turns around and sees Jesus, I'm going to tell you, somebody else is going to have to take over reading because I'm going to be blubbering. I blubbered while I was writing it, so I know I'll be crying. So just be ready, someone.